everybody, welcome to another episode of Classes of Mail. My name is Alan Gigax, and today we have the person who is intended to be appointed as the Director of Education when the CLC takes office in the next year. We have with us Paul Boulanger, and make no mistake, it is pronounced Boulanger, and he is the branch president of Branch 44 Merged in Manchester, New Hampshire, and he will be, when the Director of Education comes back, he's going to be the guy. So, Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alan. Appreciate it.
You got it. It is great to have you on, and I am excited that the Director of Education is coming back. As you probably know, education is extremely important to me. That's why this podcast exists, and I'm really pleased to have this opportunity. Tell the listeners right off the bat, like, what the Director of Education will do.
So this is kind of interesting because there is a little backstory to how I sat down with James and he actually talked to me about this.
Okay.
But he did. So Corey Walton sent me a text and said, "Hey, would you mind if James Henry gave you a call?"
That's so cool. Yeah, I've gotten a similar message.
Out of the clear. It was really out of the clear blue because I talked to Corey from time to time about trainings, but it just came out of the clear blue without any backstory. So I said, "Well, yeah, why not?"
Yeah, of course.
Because at the time, I was kind of playing the field and I was kind of sort of supporting Mike Karras' campaign, but I was still, keeping tracks on the CLC campaign and keeping an open mind. And, James called me a couple days later and we talked for maybe 45 minutes, almost an hour, just about nothing.
Right.
It was the most casual conversation. He told me how he burned some bridges almost going to national and he didn't think he was going to get the position. We talked about some arbitration cases we'd done and before I knew it, it was almost an hour. And he said, "Well, I got to get going, brother. It's been great talking to you." And when I hung up that phone, Alan, I said, "What the hell was that?"
I know. That's so awesome. So I've had a similar conversation with him when Corey, put us in contact. And he called me, and ultimately it was to get on to Classes of Mail. And it's the most amazing thing. Like, here's this guy at the tippy top of the union, and that he's just this actual, normal, down-to-earth, humble human being.
Absolutely. You get to know him, and I'll tell you, he's just a regular guy who loves his desserts. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so now you get to know James Henry a little bit. Well, so let's get in before we get to the actual duties. Let's tell the rest of the story. So how did you get from that to this position?
So we had that conversation, and then I'm sure you heard about the Committee of Presidents meeting where I put Renfro on the stand and said,
"We're going to talk about that too."
Yeah. How did you get to this agreement from the tentative agreement? And he kind of told me, we did stipulate. He didn't use those words. It was a mediated decision. But I'll tell you, I'm sure, Alan, you know that when you're up in front of a room like that, and sometimes things don't go your way. Sometimes people start throwing tomatoes at you. So it's really stressful. And when I get done arguing with Renfro, I walked towards the back of the room, and all these guys from the CLC came over and gave me a hug, shook my hand. Bill Kriebel there, Richie Ray, was Charlie Miller, and I was so impressed. And then I ended up, for some reason, I think it was at the COP or at another event, and I was in a hotel lobby, and James Henry said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?"
Right.
And Corey Walton came over, and he said, "Listen, Paul, the reason I called you the other day is I wanted to learn a little bit more about you, and find out what kind of guy you were, because character is everything to me." He said, "You can be a smart guy, but if you have no character, it doesn't matter." So he said, "We're thinking about bringing back the position of the Director of Education. What would you think if we considered you for it?"
That's awesome.
And I said, and Alan, you know what? Education is so important to me. My daughter just got her doctorate in education.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So really excited, but I told him, listen, well, there's two things you ought to know. First of all, James, I can't sit in a room for 8 hours. I got to be swinging at management. I got to be trying to punch somebody in the face who's doing a carrier wrong,
Right.
So he said, no, it's a different idea we've got. The position was phased out in 2018, but we want to redraw it so that you're actually, the way they put it is, you're going to be the most hated man in the NALC. Because not only are you going to go after management and train carriers to fight, but you're also going to be going to branch presidents and regional offices and telling them there's a better way to do this. Let's sit down and talk about it.
Right.
And they're not going to like hearing that.
Yeah.
So now he had my attention, right? So now he had my attention. And I said, well, James, the second thing you got to know is if you're doing something wrong, I'm going to tell you. I
There
mean,
you
you've
go.
heard me at a microphone. I don't hold back. So if that's not something you want, you probably should look at somebody else. And then he told me something that stuck with me. He said, "Brother, that's exactly what I'm looking for."
Yeah, that's the courage of his convictions, his integrity,
Yeah,
which is the number one word you always hear about him. That's what a person of integrity says because they're not
right.
afraid of being called out, of being challenged because he has this internal value system.
Yeah, yeah. And I told him, I said, James, I'm going to tell you when you're wrong. And
Right.
if you tell me, well, thanks for your opinion, I'm going ahead. That's fine. I'll respect you,
Right.
but you're going to hear from me. And he said, well, that's fine with me. So
Yeah.
I said, I would consider that then if things work out in 2026, which of course I'm rooting for the right team
Of
now.
course.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like
But
Cariff as well, but yeah, I have every intention of voting for
yeah,
James
that
Henry.
was the
Yeah.
other thing I told James and Corey too, is that
Yeah.
I don't have anything bad to say against Mike.
Yeah.
I
I
think he's
really
got
like
the
the guy.
greatest, he's a smart guy
Yep.
and he's
And a
got the
lot
best
of
of
energy.
intentions.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think just at this point in the game, we really got to come together and
Right.
think about the big picture. I mean,
Right.
James has got a really solid slate together, and Brian's starting his fight, and I think it's
Right.
time for us to come together and.
Okay, so this gathering the attention of CLC leadership, for me, I started seeing you on Facebook a lot where you're answering questions on like Steward's Help page and ADA arbitration community and things like that. And it always impressed me that whenever I would see your name, I know it's going to be a quality answer.
Not always right though.
No, well, that I'm sure that's the case for all of us. Michael and I just had to record a mailbag session where we're like, hey, we might have misspoke on the last episode, but
It
that's
happens,
the
right?
yeah, and that's the thing of being able to correct yourself because ultimately getting the correct information out there, that's the most important thing. And yeah, we're all going to make those mistakes, but that you're willing to put in this effort, talk to these carriers, put in that time, but then B, that you're on the right side of these issues, at least from my perspective. And this being willing to challenge Renfro and being willing to stand up for, table two carriers, that's a big deal. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so you know what? My whole journey against, well, I guess for speaking out and against
Right.
the establishment was when Renfro took office, he immediately fired two people.
Okay.
Just
Oh, yeah,
because they
the
ran for,
RAAs.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
just because they ran for elected positions. And I thought that was terrible because, democracy shouldn't be just at the whim of our leadership,
Of
of the
course.
executive council. So you and I mean, if we think we can do a good job at something and we want to put our hat in the ring and we don't get it and everyone walks away and agrees that, we'll abide by the membership's votes,
Right.
that's the right way to do it. But
Yeah.
when you start firing people because they don't agree with you, that's what stuck me, And at the time, I didn't have the ability to speak at COPs. I didn't have that red dot.
Right,
So
right.
boy, I'll tell you, I was dying. I was dying.
Yeah.
I was texting people saying, "Son of a,"
Yeah,
somebody say
at the
something.
at the last national convention, I got into all this stuff very late, and so I wasn't able to go as a delegate. I wound up going as a guest, and I can't tell you how many times like I went up behind Tyler Vassar and tapped him on the shoulder and like, "Hey man, make sure you say this when you're up there at the
Yeah.
microphone."
That's
And
a funny story. That's how I
yeah,
met Richie Ray. He was at
in
a
Boston.
COP.
Oh,
Yeah, he was
okay.
at a COP, and I couldn't talk, and he had
Uh,
just said something, and I went over. I said, "Brother, that's exactly what I would have said if I could have had that damn microphone." Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another guy I became friends with there, Greg Donaldson, and that was the same thing. Like, dude, this guy is saying the things that I want to say, and yeah, it's amazing to meet those like-minded people. All right,
Yeah.
so to move on. With this director of education, I've got to attack the elephant in the room right now because my listeners will never forgive me if I don't bring it up. So,
All
so
right.
far, when you've talked about training and educating, it's been, I know we just only brushed on it, but it was stewards and branch presidents. My
Right.
brother, what about the rank and file carrier who puts the mail in the box?
So I'll tell you one thing, Alan. If
Yep.
people were to ask me the one thing that's wrong in this union right now, it's communication.
Oh,
You
100%.
I mean, we saw that with the tentative agreement. They obviously didn't hear what we wanted.
Yes.
He went ahead and did it, but they don't even listen to us. I mean, they just now opened up commenting on social media, and of course
Oh,
that's
it's
for
a
an agenda.
disaster.
That's the
Yeah.
Brian Renfro campaign, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
okay. I
Right.
understand. And of course he's not hearing the comments he wants to hear either,
No,
and
he is not.
that's okay with me as well.
Right.
But they don't want to hear what the rank and file have to say, and so I actually brought this up. We hear a lot of times people are saying my steward's not filing a grievance for me. My
Mhm.
branch president isn't filing a grievance for me. They're not standing up for me. Is that because the steward or the branch president doesn't know how to file the grievance, or is that because the carrier doesn't recognize that there might not be a grievance?
Right.
Or maybe we're missing grievances that should be filed that the carriers don't even know about. So you're absolutely right. The rank and file needs education just as much, as the stewards. And
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know what a grievance is, you can't go tell your steward your rights have been violated.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. So when you get installed after Henry gets elected and you get installed, where do you start? What are your priorities?
Oh, good Lord. So, well, first of all, I mean, we definitely have to open up the lines of communication. I've got some big ideas on what's going on with Formula A and beyond. There's um, there's been a shift, I think, to try to make it an informal A training at National.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I think both the informal and formal A training should be done in regions. I think regions should be going to offices and training. There's some regions that do it really, really well. I mean,
Mm.
region two, they
Okay.
actually have a steward boot camp where they take a week. They do 4-year program, and it's a week each year, like in
Hmm.
a cabin.
Oh,
You spend four
wow.
days. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You spend 4 days there, and then the next year you take the next week training, and you
Right.
can do this in each state. So if you miss a week, you can go to the next state over in the region and
Oh,
take
there
the
you
week
go.
there. But then in Region 14, where I am, we have 2 days of training every year, beginning and intermediate steward, then we repeat it next year.
Okay.
So between those two, there's a lot of landscape that we should find what works best and
Right.
implement it. And I'm telling you, that's the one thing I guess I would do first is I would ask everybody what they're doing for training
Right.
and find out what's working well and what's not.
So I went through similar, like with the Carrier Academy, where there's so many people doing different things and there's so much inefficiency built in that when I got into a Carrier Academy Facebook group, I started asking around, like, hey, what are your guys' best practices? Because there's so much tweaking of the material. And like you say, like with the formal A or informal A training, every region does it different. We're
Yeah.
going to find those best practices and find what works, but you need that leadership at the top to actually listen to people and then be able to implement what those changes are.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'll tell you, Region 9, for instance, I was talking to some people in Region 9. They have a great route inspection program where they have teams that go around from office to office and follow these inspectors.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're not going to pull stuff on these new stewards because they're seeing the same seasoned stewards each time. But in other places, that they'll go to an office and the steward doesn't know what's going on, and they'll play the same contractual violations like abbreviated Saturday delivery. Well, we're going to take Saturday and Monday. Well, that's
Right.
not what the M39
Yeah, right.
says.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I've seen that in ground rule after ground rule after
Right.
ground rule. They keep proposing in every place they go, trying to catch one or two people off.
That's exactly right. And it's just a blatant attempt to take advantage of uneducated or unempowered carriers.
Which is exactly why we need some kind of program so that kind of crap doesn't happen.
That is exactly right. Okay, so with training of rank and file carriers, because that's my focus with classes of mail.
Yeah.
So there are definitely problems in the Carrier Academy, which presumably when you get into this position, they would be able to be addressed. Like it's terribly out of date. The slides in the Academy still show the old brick scanners. They still show MSPs. Like it's embarrassing. This is a
I know.
PowerPoint presentation. It takes 5 minutes to edit it.
I know.
Yeah.
My one of my stewards in my office is Vika Vashon. She's one of our Carrier Academy lead instructors.
Right.
She proposed all of the changes to the Academy instruction guide,
Right.
and none of them were taken.
Yeah.
And
It's
she said, "Why
madness.
did I bother? You're still teaching all this archaic stuff. You're
Right.
teaching MSP scans that don't even exist anymore,
Yeah.
and you're not focusing on Amazon Sunday delivery, which carriers are going to be thrown into immediately."
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's so much room for improvement, and it just feels like nobody is interested. I mean, in the very documents that created the Carrier Academy, it says right in those documents that it'll be updated like every 6 months or every year,
Yeah,
more often as needed. And
yeah,
yeah, it's an embarrassment. But even then, when we get out of the Carrier Academy, the instructors are going to do the best they can with the material they have. And obviously, there's, again, room to implement best practices. But I ran into this so much that I would teach this carrier by the book, everything the way they're supposed to do it. And then when they get to their on the job instructor, the OJI says, now let me tell you how we actually deliver out on the street.
yeah. I know.
So, how do you address something like that?
So I mean, obviously, there's some differences between the real world and the classroom.
Sure.
And one of the things we've done in our office that I thought was really helpful is we do a shadow day and a reverse shadow day. So what we'll do is once the carriers pass their probation or they're getting close,
Uh-huh.
or if the supervisor says, "Hey, this guy needs some help," we'll actually send a carrier out with them to ride with them instead of them riding with the
Oh,
carrier.
that's cool. Kind of a check off.
Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a peer on peer. So it's
Right.
like, hey, you know what? We're gonna have a great day together. And by the way,
Right.
don't hold your flats that way because you're just gonna, you can't
Right.
grab a railing when you're gonna fall.
Right.
So it's all these small tips that you don't really pick up, and or you get some bad habits that are corrected.
Right.
And then as time progresses, if they still need help, we'll do a reverso day where the carrier will again go out with them and say, hey, listen, I'm just here hanging out with you. I'm not writing you up for anything. Let's just, find the best way to do this mail delivery thing. And we found it really helps. I mean, we've gotten a lot more people through the gates that way.
Yeah, yeah. That encouragement, that nurturing, it makes the carrier also feel more comfortable about the job they're doing. So we've had, everybody complains about these garbage CCAs that don't know what they're doing. And the reality is, you get these 7 days of very intensive training in the beginning. And then the next time that there's training of any kind is never. There's no follow up. There's no anything like that. And so I've had grievance settlements where we have these CCAs who are really struggling. Management gives them a very hard time. And as part of my grievance settlement, I say, we're going to give this carrier an additional day of on-the-job instruction. And the difference that it makes, because now, like when you first go into the Carrier Academy, you have no context. You've had your shadow day, but all this stuff that's coming at you, there's nowhere to put it. And, I've taught carriers before who have had, like around Christmas time, they'll come in and have them run parcels and stuff before they go to the academy. And just having that little base of knowledge makes them retain the information from the academy so much better. And so, yeah, just an additional day somewhere down the road would be phenomenally helpful. And Paul, let me get your take on this. I feel like this would benefit the employer as well, to have properly trained carriers.
So, but this is the funny thing, right? You have to get the Dr. Jekyll of your supervisor because they're so used to looking for things we do wrong.
Yes,
exactly. They're used to coming after us and finding ways to fire us. You got to train them to, hey, listen, this is somebody you got to say you're doing a good job today. Look for something they're doing right.
Right.
But they're in such a mold that they want to get people fired. It's the same way it's always been, Alan,
Yeah, there's a whole section of the ELM that's about how to give awards to carriers and give them prizes and gift cards and even the qualitative step increase.
Yeah, Safe Drivers Awards, all that stuff.
And it's never done. Never.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, dude. Yeah, there's so much room for improvement. All right, so I got to make sure that you're qualified to be an educator. So I got one carrier question and one steward question. All right, so we'll do the carrier question first because it's straightforward. It's one that I always ambush people with. It's, what are the 4 classes of mail that can go into the U-boom?
Okay. If I get this wrong, I am so dead because my wife is a clerk.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, she comes home. I mean, most people sit by the campfire and have a beer and talk about other stuff.
Right.
We talk about work and who the stupidest supervisor is. She works like in one of the offices in our branch. So, okay. The 4 classes of mail that can go in UBBM. All right. I know bound printed matter is one of them.
Okay, good. That's the one people usually overlook. So, like the Uline catalogs.
Because my wife does this thing called BRM, and I know BPM is really close to us. I always remember that.
What is BRM?
I think it's a business reply mail.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
She spent a bunch of time doing that in a locked closet with a computer. So.
Right. Okay, so we got BPM.
Okay. Yep. I know.
Oh boy, come on!
I can't screw this up. Okay. I know. All right. Nonprofit mail.
There you go. Yep, that's the good one. That's the cheap stuff.
Regular standard mail.
Yep, that's the one everybody knows right off the bat. Yep, and there's one more, and it's seldom used.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. All
right.
Can I phone a friend? Can I call?
Hey, bring your wife in. Yeah.
No, she'll kill me.
But on that point, while you think of it,
printed nonprofit standard. Did we get like Circular's marketing mail yet?
Marketing. There you go. You nailed it. Ding,
mail.
ding, ding. Give this guy a prize. Give this guy a cigar. Yeah, very nice. But you said something there that is actually really worth focusing on, which is, can I phone a friend? And that's something I always try to stress in education, is that you don't have to guess. never guess at the post office. There's always somebody you can turn to who has these answers, who's going to
Yeah.
know. And, you know, at worst, ask your supervisor, because at least that way, if they tell you the wrong thing, it's on them.
That's one of the two things that I like about this new employee mentoring program
Mm,
or the retention program is the
right.
fact that we're going to have mentors, which I think we've already done it. Some people already have, and that they're going to have one scheduled day off, but not guaranteed.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah.
overall, I think the whole mentoring, the whole retention program is like, okay, you're going to be abused for the rest of your life, so we're going to make you kind of think it's okay for the first 90 days.
Right.
Get you kind of used to it,
Yeah.
step one foot in the water first, and you
Yeah,
jump in.
there are definitely a lot of aspects of that I like to see. Back in season 1 of Classes of Mail, I had an episode titled My Solution to CCA Retention. And it involved a mentoring program, giving people a more regular schedule when they start out. And so it was really cool for me to, I think that somebody higher up must have been listening to that episode.
Oh my God. You know what my solution is for employee retention?
More money?
Good pay
Yeah.
and benefits. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it. Yeah.
absolutely.
Career workforce.
Right. Okay, so let's get to the steward question now. This one's going to be a lot harder. In context of Article 8 equitability, you are
Okay.
to be made equal in hours and opportunities. So hours are very easy to get your head around. That's that number, you know, that how many hours
Yeah.
you work. What is opportunities and how is it used in that context?
Okay. So some people see opportunities differently. I mean, some people see if you had an 8 hour, let's say you were asked to work 8 hours today and you said, I can't do that. I have a doctor's appointment.
Right.
That some people call that one opportunity. Some people call that an 8 hour opportunity. Some people call that a missed opportunity.
Okay.
From what I understand with the JCAM and the way I interpret it is if you are not available to work, if you are on annual leave, if it's I don't know, a sick day, you are not available to work, that is a missed opportunity. It's not an opportunity.
Okay.
So at the end of the quarter, they can look at those missed opportunities and say, we tried to make you equitable hour wise,
Right.
but we couldn't, and this is why. That one week at the beginning of the quarter, we gave you 2 hours every day,
Right.
but we couldn't catch up that last week because that was a week you weren't available.
Right. There were
Missed
opportunities and you missed them.
Right. But
Right.
what management likes to do is if you're off for a week, they plug in 2 hours every day,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then they don't try to equalize you, right? Because
Right.
hey, he wasn't here, Alan wasn't here, so he loses.
Right.
That's wrong. That's wrong because it's hours and opportunities, but there should be an equitable opportunity for hours first.
Right. Yeah, the way you describe it is very reminiscent of how my co-host Michael describes it, which is like our argument is in hours. We want everybody to get the hours and
Yeah,
be
unless
equal
you
in that,
can't.
unless you can't. Right. And so management side is more the opportunities where like, hey, we tried to give it to you, you know, and that's kind of this back and forth.
Yeah.
What's amazing to me is that we've had this in our contract for a very long time. And that opportunities is still kind of nebulous. That oh, in this area it's this way, in that area
It's vague. People read it differently. Absolutely.
yeah.
You know.
That's amazing to me. That's something that is such a pivotal part. Every quarter, you're getting these Article 8 grievances, and it's wild that we haven't just dialed that in at this point. But that's
Yeah.
a fantastic answer.
But they do use the word fairly in Article 8. It should be
Yes.
hours should be distributed equitably, and that means fairly.
Right.
So that to me means that you should make every opportunity to be fair. And if you can't, then let's hear about your excuses.
Right. That's exactly right. Yep. And that's where management would push back with the, hey, we had these opportunities. All right. That is a great answer. Look at this. This guy knows how to teach stuff.
I don't know. I think, I know how to swim in bullshit, and I'm doing pretty good.
Right. Okay. So you're very active on Facebook, and, you know, I see your stuff there. Now you're here on these podcasts. You know, I heard you on Next Generation Carriers, and I think you were part of the first presidential roundtable on Next Generation Carriers.
I think I might have been. Yeah, I think
yeah.
they actually are almost getting sick of me on there. I love being on there.
Well, I love it when you're on there, and I love the insights that you bring. So you're not afraid of like new media per se. So I want to talk to you about that in terms of training. Like as the director of education, are you willing to venture into things like making videos, interactive presentations,
Yeah.
you know, podcast, TikTok, things like that?
Yeah. I'll let you in on a little scoop.
Okay.
So I've completed a Zoom CLC training that'll be coming out pretty soon for joint statement violations and harassment.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be probably one of the most comprehensive that we've ever seen in the NALC. I worked with Corey Walton. I picked his brain, and he made sure he told me if I missed stuff.
That's
But
awesome.
we got a lot of stuff in there, a lot of ways to address violations, and I think within the next couple of weeks that'll probably be coming out. But to answer your question, absolutely. I
Right.
think Zoom trainings are very important because people can't get everywhere all the time.
Yep.
But I think nothing beats,
Right.
flesh on flesh.
Yeah.
Here's a piece of
What
paper.
What are
This
you
is
doing
how
in
we
these
do it.
classes?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
No.
that's why I think that like informal A and formal A should be handled on the road
Right.
because when we send people to formal A and beyond, it's only the big rich branches that can afford that. But
100%.
it's usually the small poor branches that need it the most.
Right, because they don't have that internal mentoring structure that a big branch might have.
Right,
Yeah,
right. You've
that's
got one steward there who's trying like hell to make a difference and they have no resources. You send
absolutely.
people out there and you get all these small offices to come to one central place and do some training.
Yep.
That's where you get the most bang for your buck.
100%. And yeah, and that reaches the people who need it the most. In my spare time, I run a big hiking group. And I always tell my organizers that when you're out in front, the person you need to be most concerned about is the person in the very back because that's the person who's struggling. And the guy right behind you cruising up the hill, you don't have to worry about that person.
Right.
And that's like the big branch person where, and again, Paul, this is what I love about you is you think about that smaller person, that not, I mean, the people with fewer opportunities, with fewer advantages.
Well, New Hampshire isn't that big if you don't know, Alan.
Yeah, that's a
And
good
we're
point.
not that far from Maine,
Right.
Vermont, and there's a lot of rural areas out there
Yeah.
where some people are struggling,
Right.
and
You're living that life. Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah. We're big in we're a small fish in a
Right.
smaller ocean.
Right. It's easy
So,
to think about the little guy when you are the little guy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's what I love on an unrelated note about having like CCAs or newer carriers as stewards and as instructors if they're capable of it because they best relate to the newer carriers, to the people who need the help the most.
Oh, let me tell you a real quick
Oh,
story. I don't want
please,
to suck up.
please.
I want to suck up your time, but when I first became an arbitration advocate, the first case I won, we had a brand new CCA who had started like a week earlier, and she seemed like you're really motivated and stuff. And I said, "Hey, would you mind if I asked you a favor?" And she goes, "Yeah, what?" I said, "I just won this arbitration, and I got to figure out how to pay these like 15 people. Could you take this home and just take a look at?" And she is now my vice president.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Isn't that
Oh,
amazing?
that is beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kyla Marty. She's my vice president, and she is a smart fighter. And it all started that one day when I handed her a stack of papers and said, "Hey, would you want to help out?" So
Oh my
you're
God.
absolutely right. We got to reach these people who are coming in the door,
Right.
let them know what a union is,
Yeah.
and make them part of the family.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you have that 30-year carrier who isn't going to wear their seatbelt. I mean, what are you going to do? The guy knows, he knows the score. But yeah, these
Yeah.
new people, they need that hand-holding. They need that mentorship. One of the things that I say, we have the advantage of, as a full-time carrier, I see the newer people out on the street. And I saw a carrier, a CCA, who I know management bullies him, and he was delivering like over the curb, didn't have a seatbelt on, was hopping out, going up to the door without a satchel, which here that's a policy. You have to have your satchel every time. And I stop him and I'm like, hey, man, I know why you're doing this because management is just riding you continuously about your time. And so you're trying to give management what they want. But if it wasn't me out here, if it was a supervisor out here instead, do you think they're going to pat you on the back and say, hey, great job cutting all these corners? Not a chance. They're going to discipline you or worse, and you're not helping yourself.
Alan, no one's going to believe that we didn't talk about this, but something just happened today.
Oh my God.
That
Yeah,
relates
we did not
exactly to what
plan
you're
this,
talking about.
Okay, do tell.
I just found out today that last Thursday, we had a carrier who was on a large route. They were pushing her to go faster. They had just added an hour to her route, and she had a hopping delivery with a parcel, and she stepped out of the vehicle and it was still running, and she turned to step back in, but that was too late. The supervisor saw her.
Oh,
And they put her out of work for Saturday, Sunday,
go.
and Friday and Saturday, and we just found out about it today because of course they wouldn't tell us about a safety infraction so we can try to correct it with
Right.
everybody else.
Right.
They want to catch the next guy. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's so shitty.
So yeah, it's ironic that you mentioned that because you're right.
Yeah.
They pressure people, and when they make mistakes, they just want to get them.
Yep, that's it. Okay, so the last thing before we get out of here, This will be a two-part question, and you can take us to the finish line with this. Part
All right.
one is we have these very straightforward ideas about how we should be educating people, and there's nobody who disagrees with that, oh, we don't need more education. So part one of the question is, why, in your opinion, is the union not doing this already? And part two is, why should my listeners believe that when the CLC gets in, that they're actually going to follow through?
Okay. Part one, why isn't the union doing it already? You know, again, I'll go back to that wall of silence that's been built. I
Right.
really think that people that are sitting in our executive office right now, not all of them, there's some really good people there that have, good hearts and the best of intentions, but a lot of them just feel that they have the answers and they don't want to hear what the question is.
Yeah.
When carriers are like right now, carriers in the offices, we're going through that new auto pivot program, the pod programs where they're trying to catch people on the street, stationary events, scan integrity, hour fixed office time, 22-minute fixed load time. All those things I just told you about, there's not a grievance starter out there for them in national.
Right.
So how can they not know what's going on the workroom floor? And if they do, they can't care because they're not addressing it. So tell me what the question was again, because I
Okay,
just got
so
pissed off.
that's number one. No, that is the answer. The question was, why isn't the union already doing this? And it's either ignorance or apathy or both.
Yeah, and lack of communication. I don't think
Yep.
they know the answer, and I don't think they want to know the answer of what's going on the workroom floor.
Right.
And I'll tell you how that's going to be fixed with the CLC. So right now, I'm not going to speak for myself, but the people who are on the slate right now, walking around and talking to people,
Right.
they're getting ideas from the workroom floor. They're talking to people. I mean, James Henry, Corey Walton. I mean, he's talking to people on the workroom floor every day, for crying out loud.
Right. The guy still
But
carries
James
mail.
Henry has
Yeah.
been visiting offices all around the country, meeting with carriers in their offices. He's meeting with people at union meetings. He's talking to people. And people are coming up to him saying, "Can I have a minute of your time?" And he just walks away and sits down with them.
Yeah.
And he'll have a long conversation. And we're talking about stuff at these meetings with the CLC staff, and we're coming up with ideas that, I didn't think about. I mean, Corey Walton had said something the other day. We talked about how, we're not yes men. Corey Walton said something, and I said, "Brother, I disagree with you." Everyone looked at me. I'm like, "Oh shit." Is that the first time you hear that, Corey?
Yeah, he's a force of nature. No
Yeah,
question
yeah.
about
I
it.
ended up being semi-right, semi-wrong. But the thing is, we have open minds,
Right.
and that's what you really need. You have to be able to hear people and hear what's going on to actually fix a problem. You can't think you're solving a problem if you don't even know what the problem is.
That's it. There are a lot of good ideas out there, and you can't have all of them. You have to listen to other people.
Right. And unfortunately, I mean, just looking at the way Brian Renfro settled that contract without appealing to the executive council for a vote, without hearing what the membership had to say, they're not hearing what the rank and file members have to say right now, and that's got to change.
Yep, I agree with you completely. Well, that's a great place to leave it. Paul, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was a pleasure to finally get to sit down with you.
Oh, I appreciate it, brother. Anytime. I'm sure this stuff will come up. I'd love to talk to you again.
All right, awesome. So for Paul Boulanger, I'm Alan Gigax. Guys, thank you very much for listening to Classes of Mail, and I will catch you all next time.